Hola humans, welcome back to Surviving on Spoons. It's Abby, and I'm here with host number two, Sash. And today's
Hello.
episode is going to be very special because we have a guest joining us.
Yes, we are absolutely the most pumped for today's conversation. So grab your tea, whatever drink of choice, because we are about to spill some serious wisdom. Spoon check, guys. How are we doing, Abby? How are you on spoons?
I'm at like number one, but that's just because I did the absolute most today. Like I
As
did.
per usual.
Yes, it's my
As
signature,
per
guys. What can
usual.
I say? Leah, what's your
Yes.
spoon check?
I got a couple spoons. Today was pretty
Okay.
chill.
Nice.
Slay.
Yeah.
Nice, nice.
Sash, what about you?
Today is a weird day. I got good sleep last night, and I have probably like maybe 5 spoons left for today. Five's being generous,
Okay,
let's say four.
flex. All of y'all, flex. Can I borrow? Because wow.
Sure. Today we've got our beautiful guest, Miss Leah Howes, aka Diary of a Disabled Mom on Instagram. We have her here on the show with us. Welcome. So, a little bit about her. Leah is a disabled mom of a toddler and a military spouse. She holds a master's in rehabilitation counseling and disability science and is certified as a rehabilitation counselor. She was injured in a car accident at 17, causing her to become instantly paraplegic from a spinal cord injury. And Leah runs her page at Diary of a Disabled Mom, where she shares and normalizes what life is like as an army wife and a mom of a toddler, all while being paralyzed. Almost got through that without messing up, but you know what? This is real talk on this podcast.
All right, Leah, the floor is yours.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I think Sasha kind of covered it all of like who I am, all the business. But yeah, I'm so excited. I just recently started content creation and just sharing my life and what it looks like being a wheelchair user, being a mom, being a military spouse. So it's been fun.
Also, tell us your story.
I was injured when I was 17, like we mentioned. I was in a car accident with my sister. We were on our way to school, and I was actually asleep in the back seat. And we made like a left turn, and we just got hit right where I was seated. Woke up, literally woke up to being paralyzed. I didn't really know what was going on. I was kind of in shock, but I couldn't feel my legs, and I was kind of panicking. I kind of knew I was paralyzed, but I didn't want to accept that yet.
Right.
Yeah, so I went to the hospital, got lots of scans done and all that kind of stuff. Found out that I was paralyzed. I had a spinal cord injury. So now I permanently have a spinal cord injury. It's L1 incomplete. So that was when I was 17. I'm now 24. So I've been living with a spinal cord injury now for 7 years.
Wow.
And since then, I've gotten married and I had a baby, and I moved around a couple times because my husband's in the military.
Okay. So tell us what's life like as a disabled mom. I'm intrigued. And a wife. Who's in the military? That seems like a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, life is good as a mom with a disability. Before I was injured, I was really nervous about what it would be like. And, there were so many things that I didn't know. So I got pregnant in 2022. Violet is actually a deployment baby. So my husband was deployed to Germany in 2022 for 5 months. So when he came home, I pretty much instantly got pregnant. When I was pregnant, I had a pretty easy pregnancy. I had some really rough morning sickness for like more than half my pregnancy, but nothing really was hard in terms of like being a mom in a wheelchair. Nothing with my disability really made it hard. There were some concerns of just being proactive in case I got any UTIs, because there's an increased risk of UTIs and there's an increased risk of blood clots just because I don't have as much circulation in my legs now. But other than that, got pregnant really easily and had a pretty easy pregnancy. I had her naturally in 2023. So now she's almost 2 years old. So been a mom for almost 2 years now. Being a wheelchair user can definitely be hard when it comes to motherhood. It's not like I can't do that much, but it is more difficult and it looks different than other parents.
Mm-hmm.
I can't physically run after her or like climb playgrounds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have to always find places that are accessible. Like we can't, go to places that have a lot of stairs or don't have ramps or things like that because, if she does run off, I have to be able to go after her.
Right.
But even so, that really doesn't get in the way of motherhood that much because if we do want to do things that are a little more physical, we just bring my husband along. But yeah, other than those kinds of things, surprisingly to me and probably to other people, and when I say me, I mean like pre-pregnancy, pre-motherhood me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty much 100% capable of taking care of her. There's really not much that I can't do. In fact, it is my job because I am a stay-at-home mom. That's kind of my story of motherhood so far.
Honestly, I just want to say a huge shout out to the fact that you had her naturally. Cause like
Yeah.
flex.
Well, naturally,
Cause
I had an epidural, so it's not like I like
but
did.
like you didn't have a
Well,
C-section or anything.
yeah, you didn't have a C-section, right?
Yeah, very lucky with
Hmm.
that. I think a lot of people assume that because I'm paralyzed and other moms who are paralyzed that you can't deliver naturally. And even me, like I was worried that I wouldn't be able to physically push her out, but I actually had no trouble at all. And I think the risk of C-section is almost the same
Mm-hmm.
as able-bodied people, even for quadriplegics who don't have
Mm-hmm.
any feeling below,
Wow.
the chest or
Yeah,
anything.
the body naturally moves the baby out, to be honest with
Yeah,
you. So you just have to give like a little extra work sometimes. But
right. Women are
okay.
crazy.
We are insane people, okay? How do you assume you talked about like you surprised yourself even with like realizing that you could do 100% of the stuff, like birth-wise, everything like that, and maybe even parenting-wise. How do you respond when people assume that you can't parent because of your disability?
It's tough because it's not like people just say it to your face. It's more like looks and vibes I get in public or comments on social media. Internally, it makes me sad and disheartened. I ignore them though, I think, for the most part. I don't think responding to these comments is going to do anything really. I
Hmm.
think what would help more is normalizing it in society and in the media. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I started sharing my life in such a public way on social media. I think, unfortunately, some of the world sees me as incapable, like I can't parent or take care of her because I'm in a wheelchair. And I think this stems from people just being misinformed and uneducated on disability.
Mm.
It's also because the media just doesn't show disabled parents very much, so it makes people just assume that we don't exist at all.
Right.
Right.
That's really powerful though, because like, yeah, it's not something that's really talked about or really shown, like you said. Like back when I was a kid, my mom had this friend, and like I was homeschooled, so like we had this like gigantic homeschool group, and she was one of the moms. She was a paraplegic, and she had 7 kids, and it was so cool because like it's not ever something that was viewed as like different. At least for me being a kid, it was always like normal. Yeah, she's in a wheelchair, she's got 7 kids. Like no one ever questioned her ability to parent, you know? And I'd never seen anything like that since leaving that homeschool group, like since growing up. It was kind of like, okay, I mean, but they're out there, but like nobody ever talks about it. You don't ever see that. And so what's happened to me is that people will ask my husband about me. And like, I'm not even a parent, but just like in general, I've had people ask my husband about, so like, can your wife like XYZ is this like okay? And I'm like, I'm right here. It's so unnecessary. I'm still a human being. So like I totally resonate with that. I love that.
I
With
think
that.
that is so cool though that you like grew up knowing a mom who was a paraplegic and had like 7 kids. Like I can't even
Mm-hmm.
imagine having 7 kids when I was walking. Like let
Right.
alone
Right?
now I'm paralyzed and I'm Violet gives me a run for my money every single day, and she's my only one.
Right.
Like that is crazy, and that is so cool.
Yeah, and she rocked it. Like you never would have even like known, like minus her being in a wheelchair every day. Like but it shouldn't even be that spectacular. Everybody views it as being some spectacular feat.
Hmm.
It's not.
I feel like
Yeah.
motherhood is a spectacular feat, and people
Well,
look at it
yeah.
as like, okay, this is already 10 times hard, and you're doing it like with another quote unquote obstacle, like the wheelchair, because and people, all of like, I feel like the negative comments that you get from it. Like, I admire people who have 7 kids, like point blank. You have 7 kids,
Hmm.
I'm admiring you because I'm over here freaking out. Mind you, I'm not in a relationship, I'm not married. But I'm over here freaking out about the fact that like I could have like 2 kids. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's 2 times postpartum. Like ask Sasha, I literally freak out about it. So like you have one, and I'm admiring you. You know what I'm saying? Like I just admire people who like are mothers and they're rocking it, which you are. So like slay.
Thanks. Viewing people with disabilities as like being so amazing for doing like things that even like regular able-bodied people do is like, yeah, it's not that crazy. Like you
Mm.
don't need to think that it's like this big crazy thing because
Mm-hmm.
it leads to this like presumption that most people in our situation just
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that leads it back to like we don't exist. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
when we exist doing normal things, it's like, wow. It's
Right.
like we were like, an animal in a zoo. Like it's
Right.
Right.
yeah.
Like, and I'm wondering, I'm like, are you guys just truly like cheering us on? Are you just fact like surprised about the fact that we're capable of it?
Right.
Like,
Right.
are you like truly like, oh my gosh, God bless your heart? Or is it more like, God bless your heart, how the heck are you doing this? Like, I'm surprised you can even like, you can push a cart and you're in a wheelchair? Oh,
That's
you know,
crazy.
I do
like,
think there's a difference that I think is important when like, and I know you guys probably can tell this too with certain people. Some people you can tell it's like a bless your heart, like you poor thing
mm-hmm,
kind of thing. And then it's
Hmm.
like a bless your heart, like wow.
mm-hmm,
Like
Right.
I know that's more difficult for you, and I'm amazed because I know it's more difficult. And
mm-hmm,
I think there's a difference. Like
mm-hmm,
I appreciate
Definitely.
when someone who like has experience with disability or someone who just like they just get it more
Right.
when they're
mm-hmm,
like they call you amazing because it's not like they're coming from a place of like wow you
Pity and
exist
like,
like
mm-hmm.
yeah.
So you're my
yeah.
inspiration now versus
Oof.
like, I
The
get that it's a
inspiration.
struggle for you and
Ugh,
you can do this. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what's something that your child has taught you about disability without even realizing it?
She has taught me that when a child is exposed to something it becomes normal to them,
Mm.
and I didn't realize this before I had her, but me being in a wheelchair will forever be normal to her. I never
Mhm.
have to explain it to her because she's been exposed to it from the very beginning. She's so used to it. Like I'm just her mom and she knows I'm on wheels and like that's that. Like she will never be be confused about what disability is and be uncomfortable with it because she's been exposed to it at such a young age. And I
Mm.
think like not even people being in a young age isn't even the important part. It's just like being exposed to it in general is important. And
Mhm.
like having a child be exposed to it is really cool because that like primes them for the rest of their life. But also just knowing that adults, when they're exposed to something on a regular basis, it becomes normal to them.
Mm.
Mhm.
So I think that's really interesting. And it's something that I didn't really truly realize until I had her.
Right. No, and on another front, I can relate to that too. My oldest sister, she's disabled, and like it's going back to that, I never knew a life without that. So that will forever and has always been normal for me. And
Right.
so, it's weird to think about other people who haven't been exposed to that. Of course this is normal. Like, of course
Right.
people like this exist, you know? And so yeah, that's really gonna benefit her in the long run.
Yeah, and along the same lines of that, something else that she's taught me, or I guess not that she's taught me, something else that I'm now realizing is that I didn't grow up with that. I wasn't exposed to disability until I was disabled myself.
Mhm.
So like something that's really hard that I like kind of had to overcome after becoming disabled is overcoming my own ableism, which I didn't even know
Mm,
was there. I
that's
didn't really
powerful.
even know that I had these kind of like presumptions and just like mindsets and ideas about disabled people and disabled life until I became disabled myself. When I was first injured, I never took pictures of my chair. I never wanted people to
That
see
part,
me. Yeah,
that part.
because I felt ugly. Like my wheelchair is
Mm-hmm.
ugly. People don't want to see a wheelchair. And
Mm-hmm.
that's because like I didn't see people in wheelchairs, especially girls in wheelchairs, young girls in wheelchairs. I wasn't exposed to it at all. So
Mm.
like my own ableism is like disabled people are ugly.
Mm.
Like
Mm,
that couldn't
mm,
be farther from the truth. Like
Mm-hmm. I feel
and
like for
that's yeah.
me, I didn't grow up with any disabled siblings. I am the disabled sibling. Um, but I grew up with a lot of people around me who were disabled. Part of that has to do with the fact that my mom's a speech pathologist and worked in a lot of group settings. And the bring your kids today to work day type of things, or like just being in communities that she was involved in, where there were a lot of people who were disabled. So that was never weird to me. Like I always knew, at the time when I was quote unquote able-bodied, you know what I'm trying to say? Like it was never weird. It was never like I met Sasha and her sister and I was like, oh, she's disabled. How do I interact? It was super normal. I just fought with her like
Yeah.
I do with all of my other friends. Literally, like we just have fun. And so I think that on the flip side of that, when your kid is exposed to disabilities early, even if you not are not a parent with disabilities, if you do become disabled along your parenthood journey or they get a sibling who's disabled, it won't be weird for them, you know?
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I relate to that hardcore about the not taking pictures with your wheelchair thing. And I don't know why. It's just like I was so used to always seeing myself standing up. And so like even times where like I'm ambulatory, so I couldn't stand up, I was like, I just don't need a photo, like it
Yeah.
wasn't until like maybe a couple months afterwards, I'm like, wait, I don't got like there's no photos of me. And that's because at the time I was like fully wheelchair dependent mostly, and I'm just like, this is awkward. So I had to like
Yeah.
figure out how to pose. It was just that whole crisis you go through
Mhm.
when it's like, okay, I have a wheelchair now, like it's not going anywhere. Like, yeah. So I really
Yeah.
do relate to that. It's
How do you
crazy.
overcome that crisis as me about to be a ambulatory wheelchair user? That's how do you bridge that gap?
I think it's really about letting yourself grieve what you've lost
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost. Like don't avoid grieving. Like don't
Mm-hmm.
avoid going through that process and like all the emotions you're going to go through and all the thoughts that are going to come in your head. Let yourself grieve, let yourself feel what you've lost. But then like move toward acceptance of like this is the way it is, and like living in fear and anxiety and worry
Mm-hmm.
isn't going to get you anywhere, and like
Mm-hmm.
accepting it is like the biggest thing you can do. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is like one of my biggest pieces of advice for someone who's newly disabled is just like
Mm-hmm.
grieve and then like go toward acceptance, because once you get
Mm-hmm.
to acceptance, that's when like life just takes off. Like
Mm-hmm.
you start to live your life again, and you start to be happy again, and you start to love yourself again,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not worried about what people think because like you love
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And I think like
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing is like not loving yourself is also an issue,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm,
you kind of assume that the things you think about yourself are what other people think of you. And like
Mm-hmm.
once you
mhm.
start feeling like good about yourself and loving yourself again, those are what you can like hope people feel about you
Mm-hmm.
too.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, and to the answer that literally to that point is that I tied a lot of my like self-worth to the fact that I could walk. obviously people are like looking at me like, why is she in a wheelchair? And actually that was also a fact of it, is that I was like, known in this community and I was totally fine, and I show up like to a conference and I'm like in a wheelchair and they're like, what in the world? But I think a lot of that part was like moving towards the acceptance and realizing that there's like stages to that acceptance. I'm not necessarily going to go from the stage, especially because I'm ambulatory, of somebody who is paraplegic being like 0 to 100 and just like like batty in a wheelchair all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? Like, but like there's stages to the acceptance of like, being okay with it, then like being proud of it, and then just not giving a crap because like, yeah, I'm in a wheelchair. What are you gonna do about it? And like honestly, the way that you act about yourself in the wheelchair, people treat you that way too. Like if you're confident about yourself being in a wheelchair, people are gonna be confident about it too. But if you're acting weird and being like, oh, they're gonna be like side eye, you know? And so I really feel like for me, especially as someone who's had to go over the course of the years, I just did it. Nike girl. I just did it because like honestly at the end of the day I realized like me thinking about everybody else what they're thinking is really affecting me. Cause like I'm the one who's flaring and having spinal issues because I refuse to use my wheelchair like that, They're fine. They're sleeping at night. They're not at the hospital. I am. I just realized like I need to accept it and I need to get over myself. And like literally she said, just do it. And I think realize that there are stages to the acceptance because like, you grow. And as you do it,
Hmm.
you become more normalized in it and it's fine. Then you just don't care.
Yeah, and it's also like the let them theory comes to mind too of
Mm-hmm.
if they're gonna have these thoughts about you, let them. Like they don't need to
Hmm.
be in your life. And those kind of people, you're weeding them out. Just focus on yourself.
I
Mm-hmm.
can only control me. I can't control them.
Yes, exactly. I want to share a story about like the pictures. So,
Mm-hmm.
Go for it.
um, when I was making my Bumble profile, so first off, I met my husband on Bumble and I was only on there for like 2 weeks. And so when I made my profile, this was like a year, 2 years after my injury, and I still barely had any photos in my chair. And so when I made my profile, I didn't have any photos of myself on my chair and I didn't mention my disability. So when people swiped on my profile, they didn't know yet that I was disabled. So
Hmm.
when I would talk to these guys, when I felt like maybe I was vibing with them, then I would bring it up. Some people, like a handful of people, would like ghost me as soon as they found out.
Just straight out the gate.
Like
That's
they just would
crazy.
I've
stop
had
talking
that.
to me. Some
Mm-hmm.
would say things like, "Oh, okay, well, I wasn't looking for anything serious anyways."
The soft ghosting.
Yeah. But then when I met my husband, we we matched on New Year's Eve. And then like a month later, so we matched, we talked for a little bit, and then I ghosted him for like a month. And I didn't really
Oh.
like it wasn't intentional. It wasn't like, ew, ghost. It was just like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel anything yet. So, but we had each other on Snapchat. So, like after a month, he started like swiping up on my stories and he saw like I was playing guitar. So, he was commenting on that cuz he also played guitar. And eventually we were texting a lot and then we FaceTimed. So, we FaceTimed one night for like a few hours. And
Ooh.
then that night I was like, okay, I got to tell him. so, so he still at that point didn't know that I was disabled. And so I asked him like, hey, or first I said like, hey, I have to tell you something. And in his mind, he was thinking like, oh no, like she has a boyfriend or like she's not interested, so she's like letting me down easy or whatever. But I was like, are you familiar with spinal cord injuries? And he was like, yeah, actually, I have a cousin who has a spinal cord injury. And like side note, he does have a cousin who has a spinal cord injury, and she was injured 6 months prior to me, and we have the exact same level of injury.
Oh, that's so
Stop.
Yeah,
cool. What in the world?
isn't that crazy?
That is insane.
Yeah. So he was a little bit familiar with spinal cord injuries. And so I told him like I have a spinal cord injury, I'm a wheelchair user. Like this was my first time like really telling him about it and like telling someone that I actually liked. Because up to this point, like I wasn't really finding anyone that I
Right.
truly felt like I liked. And he was just like, yeah, okay. And I was like, I think I told him like maybe I was a little nervous to tell him. And he was like, yeah, I think there's a little bit of stigma around people with disabilities. At that point,
Green
I was
flag?
I was 19.
Green
I didn't even
flag.
know what the word stigma meant.
Oh,
I was like,
Wow.
so I looked it up and I was like, oh my God, wow, like he's smart.
It's
And
kind of
like,
with it.
yeah, like he's with it. And he like that like just told me like he wasn't on the stigma side, like he was on the
mm-hmm.
like acceptance side of like it's
Mm-hmm.
just like it's normal. So yeah, so then I told him that, and then the next day we went on our first date. And another story with that, sorry, these are like little tangents, but
Go.
told me to meet him at this guitar shop. And like I had been there before because I played guitar and that's where I got like some of my guitar stuff. And so when we went in, so this was the first time he saw me in a wheelchair. First of all, like he didn't even bat an eye, like he just like smiled and was just like, okay, let's go. And then we went in the store, and then like that's when we realized we had already met in that store like 2 months prior to this. So before we had even swiped on Bumble or talked or anything, we met in this same store. So like, and I remember because he was going this way and I was going that way, and like it was a tight space, so I could barely fit my chair. And I remember he was like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. And like, you know, the vibe of like sometimes people act so awkward and uncomfortable of like
Oh yeah.
they see like a disabled person, they're like, oh no, like they either jump out of the way
Right.
or like
Yeah.
they just like freeze and they don't know
They
what
don't
to
know
do.
what
Like
to do.
he was so sweet. Like he was like, oh, I'm so sorry, like let me move out of your way. And he gave me
Like a
this look
normal human
like
being.
yeah. And he gave me this like sweet look. Like I remember thinking like, oh, he seemed like kind of a nice guy. And that was our only interaction. But then six weeks or 2 months later, we met at the same place for our first date.
That's wild.
Isn't that crazy? It's like fate.
That is so cute.
But yeah, so then that's the day we met, and then after that, we pretty much saw each other every single day until he left for the army.
I
Wow.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And I love that he like already knew before you even fully processed that there was like a stigma towards people who are disabled. Like he's, you know, the green flag guy on Instagram. He's the green flag guy.
He says,
I don't even remember at this current moment when I
get
need it. I
honey
can't remember.
roast.
Do you feel like a lot of people have had misconceptions of him being that you guys are in an interabled relationship?
I think that people assume that like he is like this like saint for being with me. Like he has a savior complex because he's
Mm-hmm.
with someone who's disabled, and people assume that like he is like my caregiver, and like I'm a burden on him and he carries like the weight of our family. I think those are some misconceptions that, you know, aren't true.
Yeah, for sure. We actually have a podcast episode next season talking all about that. So,
Oh, cool.
you know, guys, make sure you tune in. But I think a lot of people in interabled relationships experience that. Um, you know, it's like they'll have a caretaker, but then they see like the wife who may be able-bodied and they'll be like, "Oh, she's automatically the caretaker." Like it's not
Not
exactly how that
necessarily true.
works. Right. Um,
Right.
it's true.
I think some misconceptions about our relationship in general is that people think that he's in it for the money or that I'm in it for the money. Like he's in it for the money because I'm disabled and like there must be some money that he's here for, which I don't know where this comes from. Like I don't know what money they're talking about. Like
Same.
I don't get it. This is like a common thing, but also like for the military, like people assume that people marry people in the military for their money. Yeah, I think a lot of people assume that our partners are saints for being with us, but our partners just love us for who we are. They accept us for all the good and all the bad, and we do the same for them. Like, sure, my disability might add some challenges to the relationship, but any relationship has challenges. They just might not be disability related.
They're like every other couple related.
Right, right. And I think that's like the biggest thing I've learned, especially in the past few years since we became parents and just being together for over time, is like realizing that our relationship is just as deep and real and quote unquote normal as regular, fully able-bodied relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think people always assume that there's some kind of imbalance, that like he takes on a lot of burden from being with me, or that because he's in the military, I'd take on burdens for being with him. And I think like specifically our dynamic in our relationship of me having a disability and having challenges with that, and him being in the military and having challenges with that, it kind of balances it out. So for us, we both bring challenges to the relationship, and we both have a lot of good to add to the relationship. So it really balances us out, and it prevents any resentment or things like that.
Absolutely. 100%.
So, you're an educated baddie because you talked about in the introduction, or Sasha mentioned it, you have your master's in disability science. So let's start there for people who don't know what that is. What is it and why is it important?
Yeah, so disability science is basically like the study of different aspects of disability. So, like social aspects, cultural, historical, physical. So, in my degree, I have a master's in rehabilitation counseling and disability science. So, basically, the program that I went to, we learned about disabilities and, different theories about disability, different types of disability. There's physical, there's sensory, um, developmental. There's so many different kinds of disabilities. So we learn about disabilities like that in general, but we also learn about mental health aspects. So basically psychological theories being applied to people with disability. So the program is basically counseling for people with disabilities, and disability science is just the study of life with a disability from all the different perspectives that there are.
I'm gonna hire you.
I didn't even know that was a thing. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
So rehabilitation counselors mainly work with people getting back to work. So when you
Definitely hiring you.
Yeah, so they usually work if I were to, so I am actually a certified rehabilitation counselor, but I'm not currently practicing. But if I were to practice, the primary location or setting that I would work is like a state agency or a private rehabilitation agency that helps people returning to work. So that is like overcoming barriers. So if you need help with figuring out what accommodations you need, or if you need transportation for work, if you like, for me, like I worked with a state vocational rehabilitation agency when I lived in Florida, and I got my vehicle modifications covered. So my hand controls were covered by that. So I worked with a rehabilitation counselor when I did that. And then they also help with like education and training. So again, they covered my bachelor's and my master's through that program. So every state, I should mention, every state in the United States has a program. It might be called something different, but
it's
I would
typically like
recommend
VR, right?
Yeah, VR. Yep. So yeah, it's mainly vocational and work stuff though. So like if it's anything recreational, they're not going to cover it. So if you just want to drive because you want to go to the store and you want to go places that aren't work related, they're not going to cover it. Or if you want to just go to get an education just for fun, they're not going to cover it. So yeah. But after you get certified, you can then work as an intern as a mental health intern. So every state is different. So like here in Georgia, it's called an LPC, a licensed professional counselor, and then in Florida, it's called an LMHC, a licensed mental health counselor, and every state in the whole country is different. This certified rehabilitation counselor certification is nationwide, so you can work as a CRC in any state. But for the mental health side, it just depends on the state. But as soon as you get your master's in rehabilitation counseling, you can work as an intern and practice mental health under a supervisor.
Got it. That's really good to know. The things that I didn't know. That's really cool. So, how has your personal experience with disability shaped the way you approach academic work and advocacy?
Oh my gosh, completely. I think if it weren't for my disability, I probably wouldn't have gone into this field. I had an interest in psychology before I was injured, but again, like I didn't have a lot of experience with disability, and becoming disabled gave me like such a passion for it that that's the whole reason why I went into the field of rehabilitation counseling and why I got educated in it. And my own personal experience is just one like part of disability. Like I can speak from my experience, but it's not going to be the same for other people with chronic illnesses or disorders or disabilities. Like it gave me an inkling of like I'm part of the club, you know, like I'm disabled too, but like it kind of gave me like a foot in the door of like being able to grasp and understand disability and concepts like that in an education setting. But and it gave me my passion for it. But once I, you know, started learning it is when I really started to grasp disability and all of that.
Fascinating, honestly. I've always been interested in that. At one point I wanted to do my undergrad in at the university they had like a minor that you could get in disability science, but I didn't do it for other reasons. But anyways, let me ask you one last question, and it's for our listeners, and maybe even us as the host, as newly who are like newly disabled or diagnosed, who are struggling to advocate for themselves or just like trying to figure out this new reality that they've been hit in the face with. What's one piece of advice you'd want to leave them with?
I think this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with Sasha of just, I think the biggest thing of being able to be at a point to advocate for yourself and
Mm.
to accept disability is like going through the grieving process and letting yourself grieve,
Hmm.
you know, and once you get to a point of accepting it, like accepting your new life, accepting your new body, your differences, embrace all of it. That's what makes you you.
Hmm.
And you know, let yourself grieve, but the faster you accept it, the more you will start to love your life again, and the
Hmm.
more you'll be open to experiences that you may not have had you not had your disability. So I think just accepting your disability is a huge step to take, and then once you get to that point, then you can know where to go from there and know what direction you want to take your life, how to advocate, and how to work through those struggles going forward.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that's really powerful. I think, regardless of if, you're disabled because you have a chronic illness or you're disabled because of an injury, that grieving process is pretty much the same. And I
Hmm.
know that there are a lot of chronic illness and disability creators out there who talk about the stages of grief in um, in your health journey, however it's been altered. And I think it's really powerful. It's something that I definitely remember going through right as it was starting to get really bad for me. Um, and there were almost points where, I would go through certain stages and then I find myself circling back to the grieving stage
Same.
and then making my way through and then moving back to the grieving stage again. Cause like, it really hits you, like, depending on, the kind of person you are, it hits you certain ways, so
Hmm.
I totally agree with you on the, taking the time to actually go through each step of the grieving process and really sitting in those feelings, but then, not staying there, keeping on going. So like you said, you can experience, those new things that you may not have experienced before. Um, Thank you so much, Leah, for coming on to the podcast with
Thank
us.
you so much for having me.
It was such a pleasure having you. I know I had a lot of fun today. Did you have fun, Abby?
Of course, I'm always having fun. I mean, most of the time.
Most of the time. We hope,
Be
Leah.
fun.
Yeah, I had so much fun. I think this is like such a cool thing that you guys are doing, and especially as two disabled girlies, like I think that's what the world wants to hear is like from this kind of a podcast, this kind of a setting. So I'm really
Yes.
honored to be here. I'm really excited.
Yes.
Hey.
Well, before we let you go, where can our listeners find you online or connect with you if they want to learn more about your journey?
Yeah, so my pretty much on all platforms. So Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. On all of those, it should all be the same at Diary of a Disabled Mom. So I'm over there. If you want to follow me or ask me any questions over there, feel free.
Very cool. Yes, please make sure you give her a follow. And for any of the new listeners out there, go ahead and follow us at Surviving on Spoons on all platforms. Thank you so much for
Minus
tuning
TikTok.
in
We're
today.
not on
Oh, yes,
TikTok.
minus TikTok because
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
reasons.
Yeah.
Upset
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
So we don't have TikTok. But we're on everything
Yeah,
else,
no
guys.
TikTok.
Make sure you follow us there.
And I think with that, I think it's time for us to rest, recharge a little bit, get ready for Monday because tomorrow for us is Monday. Anyway, until next time, conserve those spoons and as always, prioritize that health, drink some tea, drink water, and yeah.
That part.
Mm.
Bye.
Bye.